Hello guys, and welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're going to see how to use CSS to solve common problems. Over in the Oxygen Facebook group, there was a question that how to set up this kind of layout. There were a couple of suggestions. Obviously, I suggested something. However, I didn't get the chance to do something as an example because I promised to do a short video to show the person that asked the question what to do. So there were other solutions, and eventually the person decided to go with another solution, which was fine. I was sort of curious because I thought about the solution, which is what is being implemented here, and it's good because this is just what they wanted to do. But while I was trying to find a solution to this, or implement the solution I initially had in mind, I also thought of similar solution. Now right here on the front end, everything's going to look the same. Both the solution that I was going to provide and this solution that was implemented, it looks the same, but under the hood it looks quite different. And one of the reasons I'm doing this video was to show the initial solution that I had in mind and why I prefer that, and why you should have similar approach. Design and web design is much more than just what people see. It's being able to solve problems that in a way that is scalable and maintainable, so which is one of the ways that I like approaching issues. So I'm just going to hit F12 and just take a look at how this was done. And basically what happens here is that there was a line here that was placed and is placed relatively, because actually relative position you can still have a top position like you can see here. So this was placed relatively in the section, and these other items, these other ones are divs, that were placed also in the cards. So you have these divs, these circles, divs, and you have a number or text inside it. But my main concern was this line, okay? And the reason I had a concern with this line is because this line is positioned, and because it is positioned, it is not positioned relative to any other object. It's positioned relative to itself because it is a static position, and it's positioned relative to its original position. So the problem with this is, let's say we have this text and we were going to decide, okay, maybe we want to change the padding, top or bottom, sorry. Okay, so and then you change, and then you have to run back to that line and try to manually place it at the very center, which is exactly what happened. Because to be able to place this line here with this approach, you would have to manually try to just go tap, just like that to see where exactly is the center. Okay, right there looks like the center, and that is not a very ideal way of working. So today we're going to take a look at how you can approach this kind of issue with a problem solving mindset using CSS, and it's going to give you an opportunity to learn how to improve your CSS skill, learn a little bit more advanced CSS technique. Now the approach I'm planning to use is pseudo element, and then I saw immediately why pseudo element was not being used, because of the gradient. Without the gradient, it's quite easy to use pseudo element, but because of this gradient, it was a challenge, and I'm going to show you how I was able to work around that challenge using pseudo element and building something in a way that is scalable. Now this is what I did, and I'm going to show you that this is a pseudo element. You can see this is before, and this is a pseudo element, so you can see the before and the after. So the circle and the line are both pseudo elements. So what that does is that you have very fewer DOM elements, so you don't have to have a div. Even the text is inside the pseudo element, so it's not a separate DOM element. So you can see that we have reduced these by there's no div, and there's no text, and there is no line. So we have taken away 3 DOM elements from each card by using this approach. This is a blank page. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to breeze through this very quickly to set up the layout. Okay, so I'm just going to add a section, and then I'm going to add a div. By the way, I'm using shortcuts to add this. I'm using hydrogen pack shortcut to add this element. So now so I have a section, I have a div, and this is going to be my grid, and then I'm going to add another div there, and that is, I'm going to give it a class of feature card, and then I will add Now for this, it's going to be like a elite text, which is just going to be a normal paragraph text. So yeah, so that is a text, and I'm going to just call that feature card lead. What I want to do is I'm going to create an inner wrap that is going to wrap this, all this. So I'm just going to add another div, and then I'm going to call it feature card, just call it inner wrap. So I'm just going to add the heading, text, and button. And I think here I should have added how it works, which is not really very important, but I'm just going to drop in a heading there, which should be here, and just going to change that to how it works. And this is going to be, let me just say extract, and this is going to be my H3. This is supposed to be something like an H2. So I have the basic layout, and my button will have to say learn more. So what I'm going to do is, let me first of all set up my card grid. So I'm just going to give it the card feature card grids grid. So it should be whatever name you want to give it, but just give it something meaningful. And I want it to be 3. Okay, know that. Okay, so this is let me just access data. So I'm just going to give it that. And so for my feature card, I have all that, and I'm just going to go in here and put in my paddings. I'm just going to use WORKSPACE. I'm using a CSS, so I'm just going to use that WORKSPACE M for all that, and I'm going to give it a gap of, let's say, of gap for that. Okay, and for this, for the inner wrap, I'm just going to give it a gap of 2 rem. Okay, now for the button, I'm just going to go ahead and take away the background and the text color. I just want to make it black. Okay, anyway, that's not very relevant to what we're doing right now, so I'm not going to waste time with that. So I'm just going to give it a dark background, something dark like that, and that is for the section. And for that section, I will just generally just make all the text white. Now for these, let's just change the text color to white too. For these, I'm going to, for the card, I'm just going to make that centered. Okay, and for these, I'm going to just make it centered too, and I'm going to just duplicate 1 2 3. It's supposed to be 4, so let's go back to that card. Okay, that grid, and just make it 4, just like something like that. Now, so what we're going to do is to start the design. Okay, so I may not waste time doing the design, like going in here to set this uppercase, set the letter spacing. Can you imagine that? I'm already doing it. So then the font size, just var text is small, so just make that. And anyway, now the most important thing is to have that. Now you understand why I am doing this way, why I have the lead text and the inner wrap, because I want to use this inner wrap's pseudo element for whatever we are going to do. Now, because I'm in a builder, there are ways you could use the pseudo before and after. Okay, we have that option, but because of how technical this is going to get, it's going to be much easier to manage writing out this thing in a style sheet as just plain CSS. And there are a lot of times that I would advise that instead of messing around with the settings, even though you have this visual, you're in a visual builder, you have to get comfortable if you really want to learn how to manage your, some of your style. Okay, it's going to be much easier for certain things to write it out, and also there's a reason that you will have to write it out specifically in Oxygen Builder because of a specific limitation that I will point out. So I'm going to go to this, I'm going to add a style sheet. I'm just going to say feature card. Okay, just a style sheet for that. Now the first thing we want to target is the feature card inner wrap. So I'm just going to hold down Control and double click. Now that is going to enable me copy that class. So I'm holding down Control, but this is not a feature of Oxygen Builder. That is a feature of RECODA WORKSPACE. And if you want to check out RECODA WORKSPACE with all these additional features, you check out the video, I'm going to link at the top right corner. So let's just go there, and then I'm going to paste that. And the first thing I want to do is to make it position relative. And that's the reason I'm doing that is because I'm going to make the position, the pseudo element for that card, for that inner wrap position absolute. So I'm going to do that before. And the first thing when you are declaring a pseudo element is to declare the content. Okay, so the content, I'm just going to make it 1 for now. So that is going to be a number, and you can see all of them have 1 1 1. So don't worry, we're going to sort that out later to make it 1 2 3 4. And then the next thing we're going to do is to give it a width. But before I give it a width, I want to give it a background first, so that we can see. So I usually like going, my default is like yellow, and so you can see that background. And then I'm going to give it a width of, let's say, 50 pixels. And now I want it to be square, so I'm going to give it an aspect ratio of 1. Now the reason I prefer using aspect ratio over width and height is so I only have to change just one value instead of changing both every time. Okay, now so I'm going to give it a border radius of now the reason you have these suggestions as I'm typing is because of RECODA workspace. That's a feature of RECODA workspace. I'm going to give it a 50 viewport width, or you could just give it 100%, that's just the same thing. So I'm going to make it position absolute. Okay, so you have that position absolute. Now we could just leave it the way it was, and it would just naturally just push down this other one. But the reason I don't want to do that is because of the positioning of the after. So if we do that, we will definitely have to position the after. We're going to position it absolutely, so we don't want to guess the center when we're doing that. So that's the reason. As you can see, there is really no need for me to do the left 50% and transform translate a negative 50 to bring it to the center, because of the flex property, you see, of the card, of the inner wrap. So the absolute position is also being affected by that, so it's already centered. Okay, so let's go back to the card, and then the next thing I'm going to do is top, and the top is going to be 0, and then I'm going to do now transform translate. So you can see that that is the boundary of the inner wrap. Okay, and I want it to move to the center, to just move it to the middle. So I'm going to do transform. Okay, so that's going to be a translate Y, and now we're going to move it up by negative 50%. So that moves it. You can see that it moves it to the center. And then we want to push down this access data text by just giving that padding. Let's say var space space M should, just move it. You can see that it's moving that. Okay, go back to the feature card. And so the next thing I'm going to do is to change the color of the text. So I also want to make it black, and then the font weight, I want to make it, take that 700, and then to move it to the center, I just going to say display grid, place items center. So that just move everything to the center. You could use display flex, align item center and all that, but I just want to use grid. And for this, you can see that is close to it. Okay, so I have to give that a padding margin bottom. I'm just gonna give it var space M also. So that just pushes it down. Perhaps S. Now the next thing we're gonna do is to find a way to have this, okay, this horizontal line. So what I'm going to do is just to take this and then change it to after. Okay, basically just say content, but this the content is just going to be empty, and the width is going to be 100%. It needs to be 100%, for it to touch this one, and we may need to adjust certain things, which we're going to see. That is, we're going to adjust some of the padding. So I'm going to give it a height of 5 pixel, a background, like I always like doing, background yellow, then position absolute. Okay, and then we're going to make it a top of 0%, just like we did before. And then the transform translate is going to be the same. It's going to be the same as this. So I'm just going to copy that. And I mean, of course, we could combine this stuff, but let's just leave it right now. You could combine things that are similar, you know, but a lot of the things are not similar. So I'm just going to leave it just the way it is. And then we're going to make the left 50%. Now you can see that it's covering this later, or that number. So we're going to give it a Z index of -1. And that, you know, just hides it. Now, why does it hide it? And the reason it's hidden, it just goes all behind the section. So let's go to the section and just give that section a Z index of 1. And just that just gives, you know, the whole stacking context, just makes it come out to the front. So what we're going to do right now is go back to this grid, okay? And this grid is not going to have a gap. So let's clear that gap for now. And this, you know, shouldn't have any spacing, okay? So I'm just going to clear that. It's not supposed to have any spacing. So you can see it joins, but the inner wrap is going to have that space M, okay, that we talked about. Yeah, so we have that, doesn't, you know, so let's just make the inner wrap that, and then the card itself, let's take away the padding. So we just have the padding at the top. Okay, so you can see that that makes everything join together, but then we don't want this last one to join. So what we're going to do is to, now we want to exclude the last one, which is the last child. So so what we're going to do is to target the, so what we're going to do is to target the card, the last card. So the last card is so I'm just going to call it feature card. Now we're going to say not last child. So now we're targeting, you're saying feature card that is not the last card, you know, then we target the inner wrap, okay, and then we apply all this to it. So we have that. So this seems a little bit too close, so maybe that top should be space L, so just to move it a bit. So the good thing about this is if I go maybe here, and then I want to change the margin bottom here, you can see that if I move it to large, the line, all of them go together, so you don't need to struggle with trying to readjust the line, the horizontal line again. Now, so let's move on. So we've basically gotten what we want, but at the lower breakpoint, you know, we want it maybe at around that breakpoint, something like that. Maybe this is 992. We want to make this a 4-column, okay, grid. So I'm just going to select that grid, card grid, and then want to make it 2-column grid. And that's basically that. We don't want that line. So going back to this, and we're going to just write a media query. I may have mistakenly changed my keyboard. Oh yeah, I changed something on my keyboard, but RECODA has this beautiful if you know, control right click, you can copy the media query. If you shift, you can copy the maximum, like the media query for the maximum. So I just do that and then I paste here. So you can see it gives me the media query. So I just right click, that control right click just gives me that, or shift right click gives me the maximum width. So the feature card, I'm going to target the feature card and then target the feature card inner wrap. All these class suggestions here are a feature of RECODA workspace. So you might want to check out RECODA workspace. I've linked it in the top right corner. So I'm just going to say display none. But that's not what I meant. What I meant is I don't want to display the after. Okay. All right. So at this breakpoint, I don't want, once it starts breaking, collapsing, we don't want it. First of all, how do we deal with the number? Since we're using the pseudo element, so we have this to be, you know, 1. I mean, if we change it to 2, everything is going to change. So how do we have that? So what we're going to use is, we're going to use, instead of using the regular content, what we're going to use is the data attribute. So we're going to say attribute data text. So now that this is going to pull in the content from the data text of these feature card inner wrap. So for each of them, all right, so let's see, for this inner wrap, I'm going to go to attribute and just give it a data text. Now what I'm going to do is let me use RECODA, so it's going to be faster. With RECODA I can just duplicate that effort easily. Okay, so I'm going to RECODA. I'm going to activate the command line right here, and then I'm just going to say data text is equals to 1. I'm going to press enter, and then you can see that I have my data text there. And even though the value has not come in, I think I may have made a mistake, but I'm just going to hit shift and click for all of them. Is going to apply that data text attribute. So this is going to be number 4. Yep, I'm applying that. You can see that 4 comes out there. This is number 3. I'm going to apply that. This is number 2, apply that, and this is number 1. So you can see that the data attributes of this card is what is being pulled in by the pseudo elements content. Okay, so I'm going to save that now. And then, so what next? How do we get this these gradients in this? So let's take a look at that. So what I'm going to do is go back there, and then for the gradients, so what I want to do now is to just place a div, okay, either below or above that card. Sorry, I just want to make it 100% width. The reason I'm doing this is I want to put a gradient on it. So I'm just going to go gradient and add 2 colors. Just make one that, the other one, I hate that stuff, that, and then angle 45, about 90. Okay, I want to move from here to all the way, like from this to this. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to pick this color. Okay, so I have a color picker. Let me just go. I have this hoverify. I'm just gonna pick a color. So let's go. I want to pick this color, and I want to pick this color. So I have those 2 colors. So I'm going to copy the first one, and this, you could just use your inspector browser tool to copy, but I have hoverify here. Okay, so I'm gonna put that and this. I'm gonna put that here. So I'm going to save this. I just want to I should give that a little bit of height so I can see it on the front end. Let's just give it a 50 pixel height. Okay, so I'm going to take a look at the front end. Okay, so you see we have this, but the problem is we don't have this, and that is because section had a z-index, but it didn't have a position of relative. So not having a position of relative, having a static position makes this z-index position inactive. So so we're just going to add that relative position and refresh it. That brings that out. Okay, so what we basically want to do is to pick the CSS value of this. So we have that background image. So I'm just going to copy that, or alternatively there's a feature of RECODA that says inspect, and you could just get it from here. Okay, so you could just see that and you could grab the code by copying it, and that is that's a feature of RECODA WORKSPACE. Okay, now so now that we've gotten that out of the way, so let's go back. Now I want to give the gradient to these lines, and how I'm going to do that is that's before the media query. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the feature card inner wrap. Okay, so this feature card inner wrap, let's just do that, and that's the after, and let's close that. Okay, so I'm just going to give background image. So that's what it said. I already copied everything, so just background image. So I've done that, but the problem is I already gave it a background of yellow, so I'm just going to move that. You can see we have that, but the problem is that the gradient is applied for each of them. Like, so you have the full gradient, and full gradient. So you can see it's not like one long linear gradient. Okay, and that is understandable, and that is because if I save it, it'll go to the front end. That is because it's being applied to each of them. So so if I refresh this, you can see it doesn't start from all the way here all the way. So here to here is this full gradient, here to here is the full gradient, but we want it from here all the way to this here. And to do that, we have to use we have to hack it. We have to use a certain technique. We have to use variables, CSS variables. So what I'm going to do is to create CSS variables for the inner wrap. Okay, so how I'm going to do that is this. I'm going to take the inner wrap. Okay, so what I'm going to do is to target the feature card inner wrap, but I want to target each of them. So to do that, I'm just going to go feature card nth child, and then I want to target the first feature card, and then the feature card inner wrap inside of that. And now I'm going to create local variables. Now these local variables are going to be the start color, the start color for the gradient for each of them, and the end color for the gradient for each of them. And these are the variables we're going to be using to create our linear gradient as if it were one element, one line. So I'm going to call the first one start color, and I'm just going to leave it empty for now. And then the second one is going to be the end color, and I'm just going to leave it empty for now. And I'm going to duplicate this 4 times for the 4 cards, and the first one, this one will be 2. I'm going to change this to 3. I'm going to change this to 4. Now to actually get the colors that we're going to put here, I'm going to go back to the front end, and then I'm going to use my color picker. I'm going to pick the color here, but I have to pick the one from the edge and the end, as well as the ones in between. To do that, I just want to align this to, to where this circle starts. So I'm just gonna give that a maximum width of, let's say, 900 pixel, and just give it a margin of auto just to centralize it. And let me just, now this is just for picking the color, so it's not part of the design. So I'm going to take that color picker tool, and then I'm going to pick the first color here, and then I'm going to come here, something right under there, and pick the second color. Then I'm going to come right here and just an estimate of where this, just under there, and then to the end. So I have picked all my colors. Oh, mistake, I hit the escape key, so I just have to do that again. Anyway, so pick the first one from here, second one around here, third one around here, fourth one just. Now what I'm going to do is to copy this color. So for my first card, the first after element, the start and the end color is going to be this and this. I'm going to copy the start color, and I'm just going to put it there, and then the end color is going to be this, which is just here. Copy this, then I'm going to put it here. And then for the second, the start color will actually be the end color for the first. So I'm just going to drop that last color we copied, which is the second, which is this one, and then the end color will be this one, and I'm going to put it there. Then for the third, the start color will be the end color for the second. Then I'm going to take this as the end color, and that end color for the fourth will be the start, both the start and the end, because we don't really have any after element there. So I'm just going to put it there. Now because we have that, what I'm going to do now is to replace these values with the variables here. So instead of using the hard-coded color values, I'm just going to use a variable, and this is going to be a start color, and this will be the end color bar end color. You can see that there is a gradient that starts from here, just like a linear gradient. So it's no longer behaving the way it was. And then for each of these, we had yellow. So what we're going to use there, well, would be the background is now going to be the end color, or the start color rather. So I'm just going to go var start color. You can see that each of them picks, the start. So you just have that, what was here. So that is how we're able to get that effect with the pseudo elements. So now that's basically, what we have now. One last thing is that I said this is supposed to be scalable. So what happens if we go and increase this to say 100? You see, it just goes up and messes up everything. Now, how are we going to deal with that? Remember, I said we want it to be scalable. We want it to be maintainable. And I'm really a big proponent of using CSS variables to deal with issues like this. So I'm going to keep that at maybe that 50. And then I'm going to create a global variable. So to create a global variable, I'm going to declare it inside a root selector. And then I'm going to just call this after or before. I'm just going to call it before width. I'm just going to give it that 50 pixel. So now, instead of using that, I'm going to use the variable there, before width. Now I have that variable. Okay, so we have that. So if I change here to 80, you can see it changes to 80. So now why do we have that? I'm just going to copy that variable just so I don't type much. Now, so for these, if we go into this card lead, you see that it has a margin bottom here. So what am I going to do with that? So instead, I'll replace that with the width, but I don't want it to be like the width. So I want it to be the width divided by 2 because we want that margin to be small. So I'm going to use a calc function. Just wrap that with the parentheses, and I'm going to multiply it by 0.5, so it divides that by 2, the width by 2. You could do divided by 2, or you multiply it by 0.5, gives you the same result. And then for this, we had a padding top that was L. So instead, we're going to use that variable, the before width. Okay, so if we use L, that's how it is. So we have basically the same results. If you just want to reduce it by a little bit, you can still do that. But I think let's say if you wanted to use the calc function, you could just multiply it by maybe 0.9 to just bring it down a little bit. Now, why are we doing that now? If you go back here and change the width of that pseudo element, you can see that it no longer behaves the way it did. It doesn't overlap, and this is an absolutely position element. So everything is linked to this. If I make it like say 150, you can see that the padding becomes consistent. Okay, so everything is well scalable and maintainable. So you don't have to run around after increasing the width to change the margin bottom here, or to change the padding here to to solve little problems you're introducing. So this is a very, very powerful and very foolproof way of building something like this. So in the future, if you ever want to make any changes, you could just simply come to where these variables are and just make your changes. You don't need to start messing around here at all. So I'm going to save that, and let's go to the front end, and that basically should be the end of this tutorial. And of course, I didn't add any class here. If you doing something like that, of course you should add a class here. So if I were to add a class here, I would just say feature. Now I've already done that, so let me use RECODA to add that class. And so I just activate, hit G on my keyboard, and then I'm just gonna say dot feature card underscore title. Now I've added that class. So to add it to the remaining, I just hold down shift and click on them, and you can see they're all added. That is the feature of RECODA workspace. And then I'm going to do the same here, just say feature card text or body, and then hit enter, or hold down shift and click, and all that is added. And the same for the button, I can also do that. Just come here, feature card button, okay, then hold down shift and click, and I've applied that class to all of them. So I can easily go down here and just centralize this, and basically that's it. I'm just gonna save this, and I should delete this. We no longer need that. And finally check the front end, and everything should be okay. So let's check responsive mode. Cool, nice. Of course I didn't change that to see. So we are looking at the feature card grid. That should be just one. Okay. All right. So yeah, so that is the end of this tutorial. I believe you learned something new, and if you did, please hit the thumbs up, share this video with others, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss other awesome tutorials like this. I'm going to be bringing a lot of awesome tutorials on CSS and advanced CSS techniques and layout techniques. And until some other time, have a great day. Don't forget to check out RECODA Workspace. I have an affiliate link down in the description, so you could use that affiliate link as a way of saying thank you for this awesome tutorial. See you some other time. Bye.